After that lengthy discussion of the main body, it may seem a bit anticlimactic to look at the conclusion, since it's only 2 lines long, and when we rewrite this essay in light of this discussion, the conclusion will likely be rewritten as well. But for the sake of completeness, let's do it anyway. Actually, I'll use this discussion to highlight 2 important points about conclusions. Here's the conclusion of the essay. In conclusion, I feel strongly that laptops should not be banned from classrooms. Laptops may be a distraction for some students, but that's not a good enough reason to ban them. Is this a good conclusion? Well, it could be better, but it could also be worse. What's good about it is that, 1, it restates the main thesis of the essay. Laptops should not be banned from classrooms. And 2, in that second sentence, it gives some indication of how the conclusion was argued for. These are 2 things we like to see in a conclusion. On the other hand, this conclusion also has a couple features that I think students should avoid when they can. Let's talk about those here. First, this expression. I feel strongly that laptops should not be banned. I see these sorts of expressions a lot in student essays. I feel that, I believe that, in my opinion, and so on. And students also seem to think that by being more emphatic about it, by saying, I feel strongly that, or I firmly believe that, they're somehow making the conclusion more persuasive or the argument stronger. But the fact is that this kind of language actually tends to weaken an essay rather than strengthen it. Now, why is this? Well, take a look at this difference. Compare, I feel strongly that laptops should not be banned with laptops should not be banned. These 2 sentences assert very different things. For one thing, the subject and predicate of each sentence are completely different. The subject of the first sentence is me, or rather you, the author of the essay. And the predicate is what? The predicate is feel strongly that laptops should not be banned. So the sentence is about you, the author, and it asserts something about how you feel, namely that you feel strongly that laptops should not be banned. When I see a sentence like this, I have to admit that in my mind I find myself saying, I thought this essay was about the pros and cons of laptop use in the classroom, not about your feelings about laptop use. I'll return to this point later. Now compare this with the sentence on the bottom. What's the subject? The subject is laptops. And what's the predicate? The predicate is that they should be banned. So this sentence isn't about the feelings or beliefs of you, the author. It's about laptops and their use in the classroom. And remember, this is what the author is supposed to be arguing for in this essay. This is the conclusion. And here's the point. The essay isn't about you or how strongly you feel about the conclusion. The fact that you may feel strongly about it is irrelevant to the conclusion. It carries no argumentative weight whatsoever. I remember once when I was an undergrad student in a philosophy class, and we had to submit weekly writing assignments on the assigned readings for the class. And when my professor returned the first writing assignment to me, I saw all this red ink in my concluding section, and it said something to the effect of, this was going so well until the end. You have such a strong voice right up until the end, and then you start qualifying your argument with, I feel that, and I think that, and I believe that. And then he wrote this, which has stuck in my head ever since. No one cares what you believe. They only care about why you believe it. Now, let me be clear about the point that my professor was trying to make here, and the point I want to make to the author of this essay. I, as a person, may very well care about and be interested in what you, as a person, feel and believe about a particular issue. But from the standpoint of an argumentative essay, where the goal is to provide good reasons for your audience to accept a claim, the fact that you may feel strongly about the claim is not, by itself, a reason for anyone else to accept that claim. And that's the sense in which your feelings about the issue are irrelevant. And that's why expressions like this tend to weaken rather than strengthen the argumentative force of your essay. If the arguments that you've given in your essay are good, then that should be enough to persuade the reader, and that should be the focus of your concluding statement, not your personal convictions about the conclusion. Switching into this mode can also be distracting because the subject of the conclusion suddenly becomes you and your beliefs and feelings, and this can come across as amateurish. If you do this a lot in an essay, then the essay will read more like a diary entry or an essay about you and your personal feelings, rather than an argumentative essay about the issue in question. So that's a long way of saying that you should avoid phrasing like this and stick with phrasing like this. In this essay, I have argued that, or I have shown that, or it was demonstrated that, or reasons were given to believe that, where the emphasis isn't on the author's feelings about the conclusion, but on the reasons that were presented in the main body of the essay. Okay, that was the first comment I wanted to make about this conclusion. Here's the second. I said earlier that one thing this conclusion does well is that it gives some indication of how the conclusion was argued for. I was referring to this second sentence. Laptops may be a distraction for some students, but that's not a good enough reason to ban them. It points to the conflict of rights issue that we talked about in the third section of the main body. However, saying that it does a good job at indicating how the conclusion was argued for is really overstating it. It doesn't do a very good job. It has two problems. One, it's too vague. Or I should say, if it's to function as a summary statement of how the conclusion was argued for, it's too vague. If it's just functioning as additional commentary, then I guess it's not too vague. But that's not what this looks like. Second problem, it's incomplete. It gives an incomplete picture of the logic of the argument. More specifically, it only refers obliquely to the argument developed in paragraph 3, the paternalism argument. It doesn't say anything about the hardship argument developed in the first paragraph. The principle here is that if you're going to bother reviewing the argumentative moves that you made in the essay, don't tell only half the story, tell the whole story. Otherwise, you risk misleading the reader who jumps to the conclusion looking for a summary review of your essay. So, in summary, here are my recommendations for this conclusion. 1. Get rid of the I feel strongly language. You want to talk about what you argued for, what you demonstrated, not what you happen to feel or think about the conclusion. And 2. Give a more complete summary of the argumentative moves in the essay.